off, thank you all for joining. I'm very excited to bring back some webinars this summer, especially with Agility and the A2M product. I'm very excited to see what this thing does. I haven't seen it yet. I'm also excited to let you know that this year, the Enterprise Integrator Group is actually going to have a meeting. We are pairing up with the XA User Conference up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin with ISC and Tryman. They've invited us for an entire day. So please stay tuned for more information about when we can register. Everyone is invited. Please share it with your friends. If you are not part of our Infor community site yet and you're getting these crazy emails from me separately, it would be great if you would all join the community site. We don't have quite the question and answer that used to go on, and I think that's because most of us aren't back with through concierge on that. If you have any questions or concerns, you can send an email or reach out to us. Granted, that's through the community site. But you can use this email address for the EIUG conference as well to ask any questions. Again, thank you so much for participating today. And Dave, I'll give it back to you.
Good afternoon. This is Eric Wagner from Agility. And I'm going to give a brief overview of A2M. This application is an advanced availability tool that is used with multiple applications inside of XA. So for example, we could use this in order processing to give more accurate and complete promise dates and quantities. This particularly could be in CSM or in COM. Also for planners and schedulers to look at detailed availability information at all the levels of the bill of material and provide expedited dates if necessary. Could also be used in estimating and quotations to give promise dates based on feasible material plans, and could also be used out in field service to check availability of service parts or to give promise dates for parts or assemblies. We're going to use an example here of a very simple three-level bill. So we have a finished good item, we have a subassembly, and we have components for that subassembly. So if we go back and review our Apex curriculum, the cumulative lead time is defined as the time that I need to order all the products, all the components, and the time to manufacture, in this case, the subassembly and the final assembly. So if we need to supply the end item here, and I have nothing on hand, I need the full purchase lead time, and I need the full manufacturing lead time to manufacture this product and deliver it to the customer. This would take me 75 days. Now let's talk about if I have all the components in stock and available, I could manufacture the subassemblies and the finished good item in 12 days. So this is our basic example. So the question is it really that simple? Is it really 75 days or 12 days, depending on what's available? And the answer is it's not that simple, and everybody that's worked in a manufacturing facilities knows that. I'm going to go through a few scenarios to talk about how it could be a little bit different than those two extreme examples. So number one, I have a customer who is requesting an air compressor, a model 125 actually, 125 of the 101 air compressor. I have 100 physically on hand, which sounds good. I have 75 on order, and I have 175 allocated. I have all the purchase components for the additional demand on hand, except for the hose, of which 1,000 feet is due in 21 days. So in order to promise this in a non-disruptive fashion, now let me define what that is, non-disruptive. We're saying that we're not going to steal from any of the other open orders, manufacturing orders, or customer orders that are using or allocated components to. And in this case, and we're not going to perform any unnatural acts to move all the orders up to the front of the queue at the assembly line. So we're going to let all the other orders move according to their due dates. We're going to use standard lead times. So the answer to this is I can provide 125 in 31 days. That is the remaining time to receive the hose in and the manufacturing time to make the subassembly and the final assembly. Scenario number 2 is very similar. The only so same. I have 100 on hand, 75 on order, 175 allocated. I've got purchase components and I've got the 1,000 feet of hose due in 21 days. The difference here is I need the previous one. I wanted 125. In this case, I need 250. 125 was 31 days. 250 is 60 days. So you can see it's a dramatically different answer depending on the quantity in this case. And we'll show you some examples of this. And one of the things you can do with this utility, we could give the customer that answer. We could say, I can give you a 125 in 31 days, the balance of the 250 in 60 days. Final scenario is we have a customer who calls up and says, my plant is down. I need one of these air compressors now. When can you provide it? So in this case, we could actually provide one unit in 12 days in a non-disruptive fashion. So the answer is that if I gave this full lead time, manufactured lead time to make the subassembly and the finished good, it would take 12 days. However, for all practical purposes, and most people have likely experienced this, since the plant's down, if I made a commitment to move the orders up to the front of the queue, perhaps work 24/7 to get this out, I could likely get it out in a day. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about available to promise, which is available in standard XA versus able to make. So the first point is available to promise only looks at availability at the top level, and that's very important. So if I don't happen to have anything on hand, or if I don't happen, if everything's allocated and I don't happen to have anything available, the answer is going to be availability cannot be calculated. The ATP, or available to promise, is available from inside CSM or COM. Able to make, on the other hand, considers availability at all levels of the bill of materials. So if at the top level I have nothing available, we're going to go down to the next level, and then to the next level, and all the way down to the raw material, and we will calculate an availability date. We may provide this promise information inside of CSM, Customer Service Management, or COM, when an ATP cannot be calculated. We can also do a rapid what if kind of scenario. So I don't have to be inside of CSM or COM. I could do this on an ad hoc fashion, which often happens, just to say, what if we were to promise this for July 15th, for example. The other thing we could do is make this available through other devices. So since this is written in the Power architecture, we could do it through NetLink. So it's very feasible to do this on an iPhone or a tablet for someone that's out in the field. A little bit of history here. Some people may be familiar with this. So Agility has a number of customers that have used for years, and we're going back 30 years at least here. There was a utility called I2 A2, which is indented item availability analysis. And this application allowed us to go take a look at availability at multiple levels inside the bill. The problem with the application today is it was non-supported about 10 years ago, at least. It is PDM only, does not utilize EPDM. No source code is available. It crashes off, and this is an editorial comment by some of our programmers, because we've actually attempted to keep this thing alive by recompiling and making some changes, but it's not stable. And it is green screen only. So there's a little bit of a history lesson. So we decided to update this utility, which a lot of our customers were using, and have been using, in order to provide something more usable. I'd like to talk briefly about some use cases. So we have a number of customers using this in a make to stock environment. Typically, we expect to have product on the shelf, or we at least expect to have it on order. However, recently, because of some of the backlogs with supply chain and the COVID shutdowns and that sort of thing, this particular customer has been asking us for some more detailed information in order to give promises. And this is a great utility to do that. And it's become critical because of shortages and backlogs to be able to give a good promise. So this is a make to stock manufacturer who ships off of the shelf typically. The second example is a configure to order manufacturer, and this is where we're using, in this case, features options, and we'll give you an example of this. But we don't have the finished good on the shelf, but we do have the components to make typically. And the question is, how quickly can I make this based on what's on hand, what's allocated, what's on order for components? So this can work well in several different environments. Well, available to promise, these are just a few screenshots of what's available today with ATP. And you'll notice that able to make has a similar look and feel. We can actually go down and do component availability with available to promise. With able to make, what you'll see are some additional icons in PowerLink where we can go in and do these things on the fly, or we can do it from within CSM, and we will be demonstrating this shortly. We can actually post this and select from our favorites, so we could put it in different places on our desktop. We can specify the quantity and the date, and we can calculate availability. And it can also come up and show us if it's not available on the date that I need it, what the component shortages are at every level. We can analyze those shortages, and we can go deeper. We can drill down deeper to find out what the allocations are, what the POs are, what the open manufacturing orders are, and who they're allocated to. So here's we can drill down and see the receipts and allocations. At this point, I'd like to turn this over to Bill Paul, who is one of Agility's developers and who was instrumental in this product, and he's going to take us through some examples of how this application can be used.
I'd like to consider three different bill structures as we look at the demonstration of the product live here. So first of all, let's consider just a simple bill of material with an assembly, a subassembly that takes 2 subassemblies per assembly, and 2 components, 1 and 2, going into my subassembly. Pretty straightforward, simple bill structure. And then if I create an order, just for time savings, I'm going to show you what we know already. If I create an order with asking for ATP without details, on the left side is my line item create template. On the right side, with this example, I have no inventory, no receipts. Then we get what we expect, which is a promise date cannot be calculated. And that's true because there isn't anything to promise with. And that's probably all too often what we see if we don't have any on-hand inventory or receipts coming in for our end item. As Eric mentioned, we have the ability to replace the ATP logic calculation with A2M. And that's done through a user exit, a CAS user exit. You can see the ATP calculation there. Number one, if I turn that on, then I'm able to run custom logic, which essentially turns on A2M as the logic to replace ATP inside of COM and CSM. So having done that, what I'm going to do is swap over to our live system, and I'm going to create the same order that I just showed you on the example, and we'll see what the difference is with A2M. So I'm going to start an order here. Give it a customer number, a purchase order. And for now, we'll ask for a request date on July 23rd. And over to the line items, I'm going to add an item to this order. And I'm going to add the one that we saw in that bill structure, that simple two-level bill structure. So that's A2M000 is my item number. And I'm going to have a quantity of 1 piece. And I'm going to go back down to the bottom like we saw on the slide, and I'm going to ask for ATP without details. So this is the same exact thing that we saw on the PowerPoint slide. I'm just doing it live now with A2M as our planning engine. And if I push the create button here, what we'll see is that all of a sudden we were able to return a promise date of July 23rd, which is our request date as well. So A2M said, oh, sure, we can do something with that. How about July 23rd instead of nothing available? And in this interface here, we have 2 user exits, so you're able to affect both the incoming request date and the return promise date in case there's any modifications or offsets you need to add. You can intercept those on the way in and the way out. So that's the simple interface with CSM, with order entry. One of the questions I have is, hey, that's great. You know, how do I trust this, or what's behind that? So if you are in planning, we're going to just jump to something, jump to what's behind that. And if I look at the A2M, the able to make application here, I'm going to call that up, and you'll see there's my item. I have it preloaded into my favorites. These are my A2M favorites list, and I have A2M000 loaded in there. And I'm going to double click on that, and it's going to come up with our main able to make screen. And I'll give you a quick tour of this as we're going through, and then I'll show you some more as we look at some other more complex examples. So the first thing you see at the top is what item I'm working with, Site 100 item and revision. This is, again, EPDM, so it's very specific to the actual revision I'm building. Down under the selection, I put my warehouse, I put a quantity that I want to work with, and I put my date. I'm going to ask for, again, that July 23rd, just like I did in CSM. And then I have a couple buttons with dates. Here is my main calculator. And when I do that, it's going to explode the bill of material at the bottom. I'm going to clear it just for a second so you can see it happen. I'm going to calculate again. It's going to go grab that bill of material, create an indented bill of material. And so that's the first thing you see, the standard component list, the descriptions, the types. My required quantity here comes from my requested quantity at the top, the 1 piece I asked for, times the quantity per on the bill of material. So that's where I get the 2 pieces of the subassembly, which then will explode out to 2 pieces per component. And you can see in this column, the on-hand column, that I have nothing on hand for the assembly. In fact, I have nothing anywhere, nothing available or on hand. So that's why I don't get an ATP date, because I don't have anything coming in and I don't have anything immediately available. The short items, which have a short quantity, are the rows in yellow, and we'll come back and talk about that quantity later specifically. I can see right away that my yellow rows are short, so I can see where my shortages are. And then my available quantity is a calculation of the 4 fields to the right, which would be my on-hand inventory, plus any receipts I have coming in, minus any manufacturing allocations, minus any customer allocations. So in this case, all of these are 0. So in this case, my available is exactly the same as my on hand, which is my inventory. We have another card in the center here, which is if you have a complex bill structure and there are a lot of components there, I want to drill into just my shortages. I can click on this and you'll only see the items in yellow, which are my shortages. And then we have a third card down the bottom called availability. And this is a list of my short items only with some inventory analysis done, something a planner would typically have to start doing by hand. So we just automated a little bit of it and did a little bit for you. And you can see from this screen, and we'll drill into this later, that I have a couple of dates here, a July 23rd date for my end item assembly, and which matches the date that we saw returned to CSM. July 23rd was my request. July 23rd was my promise date that came back. The column to the right of that, the source date, tells you how that date was derived. So in this case, that date came from the order to assemble existing inventory. And as you see, once I have enough components, sub-assemblies, then I have enough for the assembly. So I just assemble the existing inventory. The update button just saves the selections at the top. So the next time I run this part, those will be there and it adds it to this list. The next example is similar, but just with a little bit more complexity. So what I did in this case is I have my same bill of material from before, assembly, sub-assembly, and 2 components. But component 1 is also found at the first level down of the sub-assembly. So I basically have a common component at 2 different levels of the bill of material. And you think, well, that's not too bad. But as we'll see, it starts getting a little bit more challenging to analyze this by hand. So I'm going to go back into my able to make. You see I have two other icons in the main folder here, item revisions, item warehouse. Those are the standard Infor icons. And basically what I can do is I'm working with item revision is I'm going to find this new subassembly, which is part number A2M001, this one at site 100. And you see we have a few ways to add it. You can click this little star on the end that adds it as a favorite. You can also get that, of course, off the user menu, and you can get it off the context menu, all the standard ways that we have of running actions. So I'm going to take that, I'm just going to add it to my favorites list. So back over on my favorites here, refresh that screen and you see the A2M001 shows up with that specific site and item revision. And I can have, of course, multiple revisions, multiple sites active at one time. So I'm going to double click on A2M001 and I'm presented again with the blank screen. I'm going to ask for warehouse 1. In this case, let's look at 7 pieces and I'd like to have those on July 19th. So I'll pop up my calendar, we'll select July 19th. Do the same thing, I go over and calculate, and that's going to, again, retrieve my indented bill of material. And the first thing I notice from this screen is every item is short. I don't even look at the numbers at all. I just basically can tell you right away, I'm not going to get this, every single item is short. So let's look a little bit at some of the details here. I want to look specifically at component 1, which was that component that was found at 2 different levels of the bill of material. So here's component 1 at level 2, and here's component 1 at level 1. We see in the first column the level of the bill of material. And on the on-hand inventory column, you see I have 2 pieces. And I only have 2 pieces on hand, but it shows twice because, of course, it's looking at on-hand inventory for component 1 here and component 1 here. So these are the same 2 pieces of inventory. Of course, 2 pieces is insufficient to cover my total demand. And that actually raises a good question, what is the total demand for component 1? And you know, as Eric said, is it that simple? And it's like, it's not that simple, really. So if I can look at my required quantity, I see 14 pieces required for this one and 7 pieces required for this. So is the answer 21 pieces? And well, yes, but that assumes I have no materials at all, because this is just straight from the bill of materials. So I guess it's not 21 pieces. Okay, well, I have 2 on hand, so maybe it's 21 pieces minus 2 in inventory, so it's 19 pieces. And well, that's actually not it either. So, you know, the answer is really not immediately apparent. How many pieces of component 1 do I actually need to build this thing? Okay, and we haven't even looked at incoming receipts or any allocations. So the complexity is starting to get worse and worse with just one simple common component. Even if I didn't have a simple component, I haven't looked at any of the other components by hand. And this is an analysis a planner would have to go through. If you're asking this, I have to look at the bill of material, I have to look at the quantity per, I have to look at the on-hand inventory, I have to look at MOs, I have to look at POs. You know, you spend a lot of time in your workbench, probably, that you built to do all this stuff at once. So let's go back. So I can't expect any for July 19 because everything is short. So where do I go next? Do I go to item warehouse, start looking for inventory? Do I look for substitutions? Do I start going to MRP and look at allocations? Do I start making phone calls to the shop floor or to my purchasing agents, or maybe back to customer service and just say, nope, can't do it? So let's see where we're going to go with A2M. We're going to go and look more of the inventory analysis. So I'm going to go over to the availability card in this case. And let's explore this short quantity a little bit, which you're seeing on all these screens. So I'm going to tell you kind of how this quantity is calculated, and that's going to be the answer to our question of how many do I really need. And let's look at it level by level. So at level 0, which is my end item assembly, this short quantity of 4 pieces is my requested quantity, which is up here, the 7 pieces I want, which you also see here is short required, minus 3 that I have available. And I'll just jump over to the full screen a second just to show you that indeed I did have 3 available from my on-hand inventory of 5 minus a customer allocation. I've got another order out there that is claiming 2. So that leaves me 3 unclaimed. So that's where this 3 is coming from. And this column consumed, what we're doing is taking the temporary, it's a temporary assignment of my available inventory. So I had 3 pieces available. I needed 7, so it said, okay, I'm going to temporarily assign 3 to there. So my short quantity is really 4, which is 7 minus 3, and that's where I come up with a true end item shortage is really 4 pieces. And that's easy to do from a quick inventory lookup for this part. Now I'm going to look at level 1 of the bill of material. I have 2 components on level 1. I have this subassembly, and my short required is 8 pieces, and that comes from the end item short quantity of 4 times 2 quantities, two pieces per assembly. So I need 4 times 2, which is 8 pieces of subassembly 1, and that is my shortage. It's not, you know, you might think it's, you know, on the other screen, if you're just doing a quick analysis, you think it's 14. I need 7 pieces, it's 2 per, there's 14. Well, I don't really need 14 to build my request. I really only need 8 because I have some inventory on hand. Okay, and then we look at the consumed quantity of 1 piece. Again, so my true shortage for subassembly 1 is 7 pieces because I have 1 on hand. And then let's look down at the other level 1 piece, which is component 1. Again, this is short by 4 because that's what its parent is short by. The end item is short by 4, so I need 4 component 1s at this level of the bill of material. And that was 1 per, so that becomes 4. I had 2 on hand. Remember, I had 2 on hand and I saw it twice. So I'm going to allocate the 2 on hand here. I'm not allocating like in allocations, I'm assigning it temporarily. I'm going to consume 2 pieces at the highest level of the bill of material first, because my goal is to make end items, not low-level components. So I'm going to consume that at the highest level of the bill of material. So that leaves me a true shortage of this component of 2 pieces. Now let's just jump down to level 2 to finish it off. Here's that component 1 again, now at the second level of the subassembly. Now in this case, you see my required quantity is 7 because its parent, which is this subassembly, is short by 7. So this one is 1 per, so that's short by 7. And then I have nothing left on hand because I consumed my 2 pieces of inventory at the higher level. So my true shortage of component 1 at this level is 7 pieces. And I'll come back, but you see there's an available date attached to this one of August 2nd. And then component 2, just to finish it off here, again, I have the same 7 pieces short because that's the parent. And I had 5 that was available in inventory, which leaves me a shortage of this component of 2 pieces. And again, ATP, a true ATP check on the component is given me an August 2nd date. So that's that. Let's say I'd like to try to meet this July 19 request date at the top, if possible. So I'm going to just swap back over to my full card for a minute. And then let's say I have another plant or warehouse that manufactures this. So I'm going to go up here, and I know warehouse 3 makes this as well. So I'm going to change that to warehouse 3. I'm going to do the calculation again. And it's going to go out, do the same retrievals and the inventory and all the analysis. And in this case, I'm going to unclick that so you can see it. In this case, you see that we have just a shortage at the end item, but all the other components are available. Now, if I were doing this in CSM and I asked for an ATP calculation, I'd get the same answer, that you don't have a promise. But if I look at this A2M, it's very obvious that I have all the components available that I need to assemble. And then if I go over to that availability card, you can see I actually have a message on this shortage, which is just assemble the inventory and you should be able to meet that July 19 date. So my conclusion is I can get it from warehouse 3. So, well, let's do another what if. What if I don't have a warehouse 3? Well, let's go back to that original example of warehouse 1. Let's see what else I can glean from the information that's in warehouse 1. So we saw before that we had an August 2nd available date for some of the components. So let's say that what if I just kind of move the due date out? Maybe I can negotiate and we can move that out to August 2nd. Let's see what happens there. So I have the same 7 pieces on August 2nd. I'm going to calculate that. And you see some of the shortages disappear, which is great. I'm going to jump back to the full card. I can see all the inventory positions there. And you can see all the components, all the shortages disappeared. And why is that? Is because all of a sudden I have receipts coming in. You can see the 25, 20, and 20. Well, the 25 is the same receipt for component 1. So I have some receipts coming in. So that gives me a possibility. Maybe I could expedite those to meet the original date. So I'm going to select component 1. Let's see component 1. Let's see if I can get some information behind it. So I can go over here and press one of my details. I can drill into item revisions, where I'm going to look at some details behind that. That's going to drill me down to the card with receipts and allocations. And so I can see right on my schedule receipts card that I have a purchase order coming in for 25 pieces, which is coming in on August 2nd. So if I needed to do some work with purchasing, I have the ability to do this on August 2nd. And then from this guy, we also have more details on the right, where I can drill into the details of a purchase order. If this is a manufacturing order, I can drill into that. If this is a transfer order, an ML transfer order, I can drill into the transfer options and purchase order and schedule receipt details. So I can get more information from here. And here's my summary from the previous screen at the top. So if I go back to my availability card here, let's see, I see that I have 2 short items that I really have to deal with. But I have a message that I can assemble these. So basically, on August 2nd, I would have enough components that I could now make the complete assembly and have that available to the customer. So really, that's kind of my answer at this point. If I can't expedite it, that's the answer back to customer service is I can't get them for you July 29, but I can get all of them on August 2nd. I'm going to show you one more example, which is a configured item. In this case, I just have some selected components from bicycle configuration. You can see I have a frame with two options here, two features, man's and women's frame. I have handlebars with a couple upright and ram's horn features and a couple different wheel sizes as well. So I'm going to go back into A2M and see what we can learn about with that. Let's update that. So when I have, first thing I'm going to do is in A2M, I'm going to go to the preferences, customize preferences. So when I'm working with items with features, I'm just going to tweak the card file a little bit and say I want to work with features. This will add some additional panel here. And then I'm also going to add this item here, this bicycle. And in this case, I'm just going to add it right from the screen. I'm not going to go to item revisions or item warehouse. I know what it is. And I don't actually have to go there to add it. I can just add it right from here. So this is an bicycle B0001, no revision. And I know that's at warehouse 1. And if I just go into my preview here with my create, it'll take me right to my A2M screen. I'm going to maximize this so you can see a little better. In this case, you see we have a new panel that was added to the right, a new card with my features and my options. So in order to do the analysis there, I'll have to select the options I want to work with. So I have my same selection screen. I want 1 from warehouse 1. I'm going to ask for 15 bicycles this time, and I'd like to have those in a couple weeks on July 6th. Let's see that. Now, if I don't do anything at this point, I'd get every component, every feature and option on my list. So you actually could take an overview of everything if you wanted to, but that obviously doesn't make a bicycle. So let's go select my options. So you can see in blue are my features, my frame, handlebar, and wheel, as we saw in my bill of material there. And I can select option 1, which is the men's feature, and check that. And then you can see the little green check mark go there. I can go down to the handlebars, and I can also just double click on it. That will also select it. And then I'm going to take the big wheels, feature 2. So there's my feature 1, 1, and 2. I go back over, you notice in this case now I have an S number. The select number is now available for the screen, having changed my selections. This is the builder. I'm going to push that little action button, and that built my S number for me right there. And then it's just like before, I press calculate, and that's going to, again, go get an exploded bill of material, but only for the components that I selected for each option. So I see my bill with my option, the dark blue lines are my features with their components underneath. You see in this case, the bill of material is getting a little busy, so you start now seeing the use for the shortages card. If I go over there, it just limits to the yellow items, still separated by feature. I want to get rid of those feature things. I just click on the without features card and they disappear, and I see truly just what my shortages are. Like before, you already know all the rest of it. I'm gonna go over to my availability card, and I see my 3 short items, and I see I have no dates, no available times. And the reason is because I have no ATP calculations at all. I have nothing coming in. I have nothing to draw from at this point. So my conclusion at this point is I can't make any men's framed bicycles for July 6th. So I'm going to just jump back to the full card a minute. Components. And I'm going to say, well, maybe I have an option to make women's bicycles. Let's see what I can do. So I'm going to go over here. I can do this from any card. I'm going to select women's bicycles with the same handlebars and the smaller wheel. So like before, I can dynamically change my options, go to my S number builder and recalculate that. And then you can see right there, my shortages for my components disappeared. I have no bicycles in stock, but I have enough component inventory that I could build 15 women's bicycles for July 6th. And that concludes the demo. I'm going to turn it back over to Eric to take us out here.
I'd like to talk about a few things that we're working on to extend and enhance this product. This is based on customers having this, using this in everyday promising and asking us about possibilities for some enhancements. So number one, we talked about disruptive and non-disruptive promising. Everything that we've shown this afternoon is a non-disruptive mode. In other words, we're assuming we're not going to steal from other orders. We are not going to expedite the required orders up to the front of the queue. So all the promise dates currently are based on a non-disruptive model. It's very possible to do a disruptive model, which means we would be willing to steal. We would be willing to move things up to the front of the queue. In that case, we would need to show, going down to bullet point number 4 here, we would need to show the specific orders that are impacted by the disruptive model. In other words, I'm promising to get this air compressor out for a customer whose plant is down, but what other customer orders are going to be delayed based on doing that? So if we say we're going to offer a disruptive model, which is possible, it's going to be beholden upon us to show which orders are impacted. Second bullet point, ability to lock allocations by customer class or preferred customers. So this basically says if I give a promise date that is based on allocating certain inventory or allocating finished goods inventory. So there's been a request to allow for selective discrete allocations. Most Mapex users will know what that is, but basically locking in the inventory so it can only be used for that particular customer order. And finally, the ability to view quantity breaks in an availability window. So we showed examples like I can get the 5 bikes available on July 6th, and I can get 10 bikes available by July 15th. It would be, but that's an iterative process. I'm going in, selecting dates, saying how many can I get on this date. It would be nice to be able to see I can get 5 on July 6th, 10 on July 15th, and the full 25 by July 31st, for example. So those are some of the future things that we are working on. And at this point, we'll open this up for questions.
Hey, Eric. It's Jeff Eaton. I got a question for you.
Go for it.
Actually, I got 2 of them. Number one, I want to see if I understand the discrete allocation statement. If I do a promise, you've got inventory on hand, and if I do a promise, I'm in essence allocating the on-hand inventory. Are you saying that you would have the ability to say, yes, I want to freeze this and consume that based upon a simulation, so that if I run another simulation or someone else runs another simulation that requires a common component, it already recognizes it's been consumed by this simulation? That's kind of the throughput type thing, but is that what you're talking about?
Yes, and in addition to that, the ability to really discreetly allocate the items if I promise this for a customer, and that would be specifically, in general, it'd be for a non-disruptive or for a disruptive thing where I had the emergency case, but the request is to be able to discreetly allocate items based on promising them through able to make.
Yeah, I guess, like I said, when you run multiple simulations, and if you choose to freeze a simulation, you'd want future simulations to recognize that. I guess another question I have, which is a slightly different problem that I think that this could address, is if we've got complex assemblies, so I've got, I plan to, I'm thinking it's a little bit different. I might have an order that I want to release for an end item in a week, and there might be open purchase orders that may or may not be passed through, or scheduled come in, and open manufacturing orders. In essence, it would be nice to have a tool that does the same type of simulation, but rather than calculate the shortages, it basically says, and oh, by the way, here's the manufacturing orders and purchase orders you need to follow up to make sure they come in on time, because if they don't, you're going to be short on something that you need to release. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Right. And we have the detailed data there. As a matter of fact, Bill was showing drilling down to do that. So it's a good idea. In other words, if I do go out and make a promise, I would like to highlight the open orders, scheduled receipts, if you will, purchase orders and manufacturing orders that are going to need to come in on time. Obviously, you run throughput or MRP, it may come back and tell you to expedite and that sort of thing. But that's the sort of thing that we're talking about here.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with this, Eric. Is throughput tells you the plan, but it tells you the plan overall at an item by item basis. It doesn't. It's not crystal clear. It's as simple as saying, hey, this particular order, tell me everything that needs to be released, received, and expedited to make sure that that order gets done. So, and it seems to me you've got all the data there.
Yeah, and especially in a situation, and I know you're in situations like this, but you have a contract or you have orders that are dependent on each other. So you don't want to necessarily look at, well, here's every item that I have out here. It's all the items I need to make a contractor, that sort of thing. So absolutely, this is something that could be used for that.
We have one question from Eric now.
Yeah, the question is, are we considering manufacturing lead time for manufactured items to calculate dates? The answer is indirectly in the sense that when we're looking at manufacturing orders that are on order, we're considering when those come in from an arrival standpoint. For the end item, we are promising it today. In other words, if all the components are available today, we are assuming that we can promise it for today. Now, we understand that's not possibly realistic, and some of our customers that are using this are adding additional lead times for the assembly, and there's other small things like shipment and putting the thing on a truck and inspecting it and that sort of thing. So we have some additional lead times that can be added in the user exit, and every customer has had a little bit of a different twist on this, on adding additional lead times to this. So that what we're calculating vanilla without any enhancements or additions is if everything is available today, we're assuming that we can promise it for today. That would be a promise, not for delivery, obviously, but for a promise for shipment. We have another question here. Do we have any throughput users currently using the product? The answer is no. We have we work with a number of customers that have throughput, but we don't have any throughput users that are using the product. I don't think it's going to perform much differently because this is oriented towards CSM and promising the customer order. But if somebody wants to be a volunteer, would certainly like to work with you. Okay, another question. Are there any XA programs that are modified for A2M? And the answer is no. We haven't modified any XA programs directly. This is the ad hoc inquiry is external, and the CSM is using user exits, which goes and gets the calculations to pass it back to the promise date. And the other question is, are there prerequisite XA modules? Well, obviously, if you're using this for COM or CSM for promising, you need that. And in order to do the ad hoc, we need EPDM and inventory management. So I would say that the minimal is EPDM and inventory management. If you want to use it for order promising within the order entry, you would use CSM or COM. So this kind of relates to the previous one. It's a good question. So are we considering that we have infinite capacity to produce the manufactured items? The answer would be yes. We're basically saying if we've got component availability, then we can go manufacture this. I gave the example of the disruptive example, says we can go grab what's on the shelf, even stealing it from parts, and put it at the front of the queue. So yes, we're basically using an infinite capacity kind of model. That gets back to the previous question. Is it right to add some additional days based on that feasibility? And as I think about it with throughput, for a true throughput user, once we came up with an available to promise date, we could actually go into throughput and see if this is feasible from a capacity standpoint. That's a discussion for another seminar. Okay, and the last question is, are planned allocations included or will be included in the future? The answer is yes, included in the future. Planned allocations. In other words, am I going to take the requirements that are due to planned orders and subtract that out? So that's been brought to our attention. That is a tailoring question inside of XA, but we are going to make it a tailoring question inside of Able to Make to decide whether you want to use those or not.
We thank you for attending the webinar today. For follow-up questions, please, we would direct you to our website, or feel free to call us at 440-546-9290. And you will receive a follow-up email after this webinar. And know that the recording and the presentation will be posted at Infor Communities. Thank you so much.